Your Baylor football team sent a couple of guys to the league this weekend, and that's pretty good.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Baylor. I am wearing a shirt that is way too tight from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. So before we get to the content today, I try not to do this. I try to jump right in every day, but I'm going to put a little caveat here. I wish that when Baylor had its spring clearance sale and gave away game-worn Baylor football jerseys for just $20, there would have been a small addendum. Just a little like in quotes, in parentheses, and whatever. These will be dramatically small. I got this large jersey. By the way, I can fit into a large t-shirt pretty easily. I got this large jersey. What I didn't know is those $20 jerseys. I put it on for the first time today, by the way. It's been 2 weeks. I've just been like salivating, waiting to put it on for a show. And I was like, oh, today's the day. Why not? It's a lazy Monday. So I put it on and realized very quickly I might suffocate at minute 11 of this program. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the things you might listen to, I implore you to go to the YouTube for the following 30 seconds. Because this thing, look at this guy. This is a real-life, game-worn football jersey. And it is skin tight to myself. There are places where the shoulder pads should have gone. This was actually worn. There's a spot in the back where the nameplate went for this guy. Whoever 45 was, a big fullback. This is not a political statement, but the big 45, it's not a political statement, by the way. The big fullback who wore this one, that dude was probably a lot larger than his jersey because this thing is squeezing every part of my body that it shouldn't, waist up. Can't feel anything in like the kidney area, go like the last rib down, and I'm struggling right now because these things said large, like a large child maybe. This doesn't fit me. I don't know who this would fit. So I have another one over there too. I have a couple of these jerseys that I got. It's $20. So if you're a much smaller person than me, this is right for you because I don't think I'm going to be able to wear that out in public. You see how tight that is? They weren't made for fans, man. They were made for the team, for the real players. And I bought one. I fell for it. So if you got one of those and you're having the exact same problems as me, you're entitled to compensation. And that compensation is putting this dang jersey on eBay and selling it for $150 because it's literally the most bad A jersey the Baylor's got. Look at there's the old Big 12 logo. It's a literal game-worn jersey. And Baylor was like, I don't know, we'll give them away for $20. Whoever did that, by the way, whoever did the surplus sale, number one, thank you. I don't want to sound like I'm being disrespectful here. That was a very good idea. That was you. Number two, you're going to need to reevaluate how you do your job. The line was terrible, and overall, like it should have been $20. It should have been much more expensive than that. These are really, really cool. But if you want it, then DM me. Also, I'm starting a subtext here soon. If you know what that means, I don't know. I'll explain it later. Baylor football. Told you, I got really struggling to breathe right now. I was not kidding there. Baylor football had a couple guys go to the league this weekend, namely Siaki going round 3, pick 98 to the Cleveland Browns. Everybody take a second. Give it up for the big guy. Siaki comes from LSU, big-time transfer, decides on Baylor. Is it hot? Is it hot in this room? Is it hot to you guys? Everything's getting really warm and spinning. He came to Baylor from LSU. By the way, during his college playing career, and this is public, he talked about this, had a baby. Like he's a father. He's got a really serious relationship. He has dealt with a lot of big stuff, like big responsibilities outside the field, and was still good enough to come in and be a third-round draft pick, the 98th pick in the 2023 draft of Cleveland Browns. And he's put out videos already of him saying hello to Browns Nation, and they sound really excited to have him. I think that's awesome. If you haven't already, go check out his social media and the stuff that he's put out, the stuff the Browns have put out. It's always really fun to me to see guys in Baylor green and gold that go pro, and the week later how these fan bases accept them and gawk over them and how excited they get to bring in guys like Siaki and all the players that Baylor put out last year. Well, like 7 draft picks. You didn't get that this season. We'll get into that. But to Siaki, congratulations. And if you're Baylor, Here's what you're losing in Siaki Ika. He was the big man up front, 6'4", 358 pounds. He wasn't great at taking on a double team. That was one of the things that the NFL scouting report said about him. He needed to get better at taking on the double team, but he still was a wreaker of havoc on the front line for Baylor football. At Baylor in his junior season, he had 24 tackles, 7 assisted tackles, 4 sacks. Then his senior season actually ended up with 0 sacks, 23 tackles still, though 10 of them solo, and he was a force up front. There was somebody everybody talked about preseason as being a guy to watch out for. There was the grand piano play where I think it was Gabe Hall, Siaki Ika, and maybe Jackson Player, all 3 fell on the quarterback for Albany, which that game should never have happened because I'm surprised like most Albany players didn't die. They fell on the Albany quarterback and they literally weigh the exact. Literally, if you put Jackson Player, Gabe Hall, and Siaki Ika, stack them on top of each other and put them on top of you, Locked On Baylor listener, that is the same thing as a grand piano being forced upon you. Like someone takes and not lightly either, like in 3 fell swoops, just boom, 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 like grand pianos on top of you. And Siaki Ika was a big part of that, of eating other people alive, and he'll be gone from Baylor next season, as will Jackson Player. They're dudes this team's got to replace. Siaki Ika, a guy who went in the first 3 rounds, is one of them. And I predicted on I predicted on Friday that Baylor would get 2 draft picks, one being Connor Galvin and one being Siaki Ika. I found it funny. I was in a bar this weekend. Ooh. I was at a bar on Friday at the Buckle over here about a mile away from where I live off Baylor's campus. And I overhear things. I overhear conversations that happen at bars and things. A guy looks over to a girl next to him and goes, hey, this was Thursday, actually. He goes, hey, first round of the draft tonight. She's like, yeah. And he goes, there might be some Baylor players on there. And she goes, oh, really? Like who? And he goes, Apu Ika. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll take that, whatever. He goes, yeah, Apu Ika could go tonight. That's the first round. I was like, okay, this guy's he's a homer. And he said, yeah, then Ben Simmons should go. Not a Ben Simmons who played football for Baylor last season. And he said, and then Isaac Power, the punter, is probably going to go the next couple rounds. And I was like, wow, this guy's been smoking something heavy. He has been celebrating Willie Nelson's 90th birthday. That guy was on it. Ben Simmons and first 5-round draft pick Isaac Power off the board in this guy's book. Instead, Siaki Ika becomes the only draft pick. I really thought Connor Galvin was going to go in the 6th or 7th round, and Connor Galvin did end up signing a contract again. We're going to get to those guys later, but this is about Siaki Ika. Ika, though, becomes the only Baylor draft pick this season. Is that disappointing? Yeah, a little bit. Team goes 12-2, wins a Big 12 championship, Sugar Bowl victory. You think, all right. I like the trajectory of this program. You got 7 guys who get drafted. Huge. Can you follow it up next season? And Baylor didn't. They struggled to follow it up. This season with only 1 guy drafted. So for all that we talked about last offseason, that, the draft matters a lot, and having this many guys drafted is going to be huge. Then you go into this season and only 1 guy gets taken off the board. That's kind of a gut punch if you're Baylor. And look, it happens to every team in America at some point, even the Texas last year. Remember when Texas was just down and out last season come draft time? That was not great. And then last season, now turned to this season, things have flipped. Look, it was Jalen Petrie, Tyquan Thornton, JT Woods, Terrell Bernard, Treston Ebner, and Boogie Barnes, Kalen Barnes. So 6 guys last season who were taken off the board. That's insane. The year before that, it was only 1, William Bradley King. The year before that, it was 4, Denzel Mims, James Lynch, Bravion Roy, and Clay Johnston. So that seems to be a trend here now in the last couple of years for Baylor is, year in and year out, it's going to ebb and flow. 2016, you had Bryce Hager, Corey Coleman, Xavier Howard, Andrew Billings, Spencer Drango, Jimmy Lance, Rico Gathers. Insane year for Baylor. And then last year was the same. And then what goes up must come down, it seems, with Baylor draft classes. So you only get Siaki Ika this year. Is that inherently a bad thing? No, I still think Baylor had a good weekend. I still think Baylor can come out and say, look, we put guys in the pros. And you can hang your hat on the guys that did go. That's what we'll get into now. Mark Milton signed a contract. Connor Galvin signed a contract, and Ben Sims signed a contract. And I signed a contract with FanDuel. Dude, it's the best. I've had a lot of stuff in my life, and this one's the best. It's FanDuel. You guys if you want to take the edge off, download FanDuel. I've been putting some bets down. Here's the deal. Here's what I love about FanDuel. This is bad. You tell me. My mom listens to this show. She's not gonna like this. I lost $100 by like Wednesday of last week. I was down $100. And you can, in gambling, you can lose 100% of the money you have, or you can make like 200% of the money you have, or 2,000% of the money you have. It just makes sense, right? Like every gambler stops right before the big bet is my mentality, not the best mentality. So what do? I cook up a plus 1,000 parlay. I put $10 to win $100 on like the Rangers to win and the Reds to win and the Brewers to win. And guess what? It hit. And all of a sudden, rather than being down 100, I was even again. You can go right now. By the way, that's a terrible strategy. If you're a sports bettor or someone looking to get into sports betting, don't take my advice. That is a terrible strategy and a great way to lose a lot of money. But if you go to FanDuel right now, you don't have to worry about losing money because you get $1,000 back in a no sweat first bet. Put $1,000 on tonight's game between the Celtics and the Sixers, 76ers and Celtics. Put $1,000 in the Celtics to cover the spread. If they don't cover the spread, you get $1,000 back in free play. $1,000 at FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel.com/locked-on. Get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And also 21 plus in select states. First online real money wager, only $10 deposit required. Refund issues as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Baylor gets 4 guys in the league this weekend. A little upset that we didn't see Isaac Power off the board, Jackson Player off the board yet at the time of recording in any fashion. You do see big Ben Sims go to the Vikings, which I love because he's going pro. Detroit gets Connor Galvin. He's going to be a Lion. And Mark Milton has signed with the Panthers. Which my first thought was like, oh, yeah, the Panthers. We know them, and we don't anymore. Matt Rule no longer with the Panthers. So Mark Milton going to a program that has just fired the guy that recruited him to Baylor. How neat is that? He gets to be in the NFL. These are 3 guys who, starting with Mark Milton was really overlooked at Baylor. When's the last time you as a Baylor fan had a conversation with your spouse or a local person that you enjoy about Mark Milton? Probably hasn't been in a while. He's just not one of those players that we really talked about at Baylor, and now is good enough to be one of the 4 players from the university to sign a pro contract. Milton had a good season last season. In 2021, part of that Sugar Bowl championship and Big 12 championship team, Milton gets 27 total tackles, 6 assisted, 21 solo. This past season, he just blows up 45 tackles, 34 of them solo, 11 assisted. He's got an interception for a couple of yards. That was Mark Milton. That was him. I mean, he played all 4 years that he was at Baylor, starting in 2019, had a forced fumble that season. And again, we just didn't really talk about what Mark Milton brought to Baylor football. And obviously he made an impact enough for league teams to say, hey, we want to sign this guy. So Mark, standing at 6'2", 191 pounds, DB cornerback out of Houston. I hope you go to Carolina and make a splash because you were really solid for Baylor, and I'm really sorry that I overlooked you, and a whole lot of Baylor people overlooked you. It's still so hot in this room. Ben Sims. This one sucks a little bit, by the way. Ben Sims going to the Vikings is great, but he also had a year of eligibility left, and I really wish he would have spent it at Baylor because he was so freaking good. He had the COVID year. Football players get COVID years, right? I don't know. Sims' first season at Baylor, 2019. That was another Sugar Bowl year, Big 12 championship game. He goes 2 receptions, 5 yards, pretty much unheard of, and then explodes. 2020, he's got 14 catches, 164 yards, and 3 touchdowns. A great junior season at 31 receptions, 361 yards, and 6 TDs. Then last year, he was the target for Baylor. I wish they would have gone to him a little bit more. I wish Blake Shapen would have hit him a little bit more when he was open. Neither here nor there. And Sims finishes in total with 31 receptions, 255 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So in his college career, 12 TDs. He tallies over 75 receptions as well. Was really good for Baylor. 6'5", 258 pounds, big tight end. I think his ceiling in the NFL is really high. I love what he did at Baylor, and when he's not the focus, a lot of defenses honed in on Ben Sims last year. When he's not the focus in the NFL, he's going to have a lot more opportunities to sneak through defenses, get open, and make big plays. He's going to be a threat down the field. I'm really excited to see the way that Ben Sims tears it up in the NFL. And then Connor Galvin. Connor Galvin was he's going to go down as one of the top 5 offensive linemen in Baylor program history. Like he legitimately should. And all year long had been talked about as maybe the best O lineman in the Big 12 and one of the best O linemen, definitely the best O lineman for Baylor, but one of the best O linemen the conference has seen in a long time. 6'7", 302 pounds, and just got overlooked. Would he have been drafted had he left after the Sugar Bowl win? I don't know. I was surprised to not see him go off the board. I would like to know what scouts are looking at they didn't like from Connor Galvin, that they balked on him in all 7 rounds of this draft. Just seems like a guy that's going to step in day one in the NFL and at least bring some contribution to practice or something, that when he gets out on the field, he's going to do something for the Detroit Lions, who are known, of course, their head coach, former OL coach, for having pretty good development on the offensive line. I grew up an Arkansas fan. You know that. Frank Ragnow, big fan of that guy, and he was a Lion. So I know a little bit about the Lion offensive line. Why not? Connor Galvin has the potential to go to Detroit, make an impact in practice, and hopefully get on the field in the next couple of years. He was really good at Baylor, and again, another guy who was overlooked. The strengths, according to the scouting report: good quickness, approaches run fits with balanced, settled steps, fluid hips. But his weaknesses: zone scheme specific, strength appears to be below average, apparently more catcher than a puncher in pass pro, and could struggle to sustain blocks against NFL talent. Edges lack firmness to corral power rushers. There's a list of things that, I'm not like an offensive line analyst, but a list of things that the scouts of the NFL didn't like they saw from Connor Galvin, so much so that he dropped out of the draft. And that sucks a little bit, man. It sucks a little bit to only have one guy drafted. I know I mentioned that I don't care a ton. This happens. It ebbs and flows at schools like Baylor. You're not going to have a massive draft class every year, but it's still, if you have 5 guys go this year after 6 guys went last year, that's huge. You wave that in recruits' faces. Say, look, you want to go play in the NFL, in a league that's not the SEC, in a league that's not the Big 10. You want to play in the Big 12 and go to the NFL. Baylor's a really good launching point to do that. And now recruits pointed this season, you can't use that as a recruiting tool. And it's tough to even use last season as a recruiting tool, because then you say, all right, coach, yeah, you had 6 that year, but what happened the year after? It's like, oh, shoot. Oh, crap. What did happen the year after? So I wish that Baylor would have performed better in the draft. I don't know if that's a product of Dave Aranda just now getting in. We're about to see Dave Aranda's first pretty much full swing of guys that he brought in, that he recruited. Maybe that's going to be part of this. I hope that we see something steady, some sort of consistency in upcoming drafts under Dave Aranda, not just with wins on the field, but also player development. Look at the quarterbacks for Baylor in the last, almost 10 years, getting close to it. I mean, dating back 8 years, probably. The quarterbacks here at Baylor, the development's not been there, obviously. Charlie Brewer ends up transferring to Utah and then transfers to Liberty and has not really seen the field much outside of Baylor, and wasn't going to see the field much. His last year at Baylor was a throwaway, just wasn't good. Gary Bohannon benched for a kid who threw 17 passes in a Big 12 championship game, or whatever it was, 25 passes in a Big 12 championship game. And then Bohannon goes to USF and gets hurt. I mean, he's basically, what that told us last season was Gary Bohannon is a USF caliber quarterback. That's not great. And then you fast forward to now Blake Shapen, who's your quarterback. You've lost guys like Kyron Drones. You have lost, oh man, what was his name? He's the one that went to UAB. Somebody out there screaming it at me, and I wish I knew. You lost Kyron Drones. You then lost Austin Novosad. And to me, there are some questions to be posed here of where on earth is Baylor football quarterback progression, right? When did Baylor get away from being a really good quarterback university? Granted, that was with Art Briles, and since Briles, you haven't seen an elite quarterback at Baylor, but the progression here, especially in the Dave Aranda era, has not been great. So I'm wondering, when is the next time that Baylor can point to a quarterback recruit and say, look what we can do for you. Look what we can do to put you in the NFL. Under Dave Aranda, he just doesn't have that track record yet. There's not. Aranda can't look at a kid and be like, yeah, I can get you to the NFL. He can't tell a quarterback that. Jeff Grimes at Baylor so far cannot tell a quarterback that. Sean Bell at Baylor so far cannot tell a quarterback that. And, I don't want to say I'm concerned by that, but hey, a little interesting to throw out there. It's Jacob Zeno, by the way, for those who are wondering. Jacob Zeno, Kyron Drones, and Austin Novosad, all who did not, Charlie Brewer and Gary Bohannon, who did not finish their careers at Baylor, one of which, Novosad, who didn't even start his Baylor career, Garrett McGuire, wherever he went, and Brandon Bass. I miss the days of having, of being able to say, look, Baylor's a school that can produce quarterbacks and develop quarterbacks. So not to open up a can of worms or a big discussion, but maybe that's something we throw on the table this offseason. Where's the quarterback progression? Why are these guys not getting big looks? I get that's a tough position, but Baylor hasn't had a quarterback in the last 8 years. We thought, all right, that guy's got pro caliber, or all right, that guy's getting better and better every year to the point where he culminates as a really good quarterback. Look at Sean Bell's career. He got better and better each season. RG3 culminates in a Heisman. And now Baylor quarterbacks are, all right, you're good for a year or two. You either get benched or you transfer or we put in somebody else. And then that guy has not been great either. Baylor didn't win a Sugar Bowl in a Big 12 championship because of quarterback play. I can tell you that much. When does that change? When is that altered? When is there a resurgence of quarterbacks at Baylor University? I don't know. I'd like to see it. I'd also, dude, I'm going to have to flip and cut the show short and cut this jersey off. This is insane. I don't know. They should have put some kind of card or something. Should have let me know that's what this was going to be like. I'm sweating profusely right now because of this jersey. Oh my gosh. If you got one of these, please let me know in the comments if you're also dealing with the same thing, because this is terrible. Dude, what? Hey, thanks for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. We got a big lineup the rest of this week. Big Game Boomer's coming on the show this week. That's right. The Big Game Boomer again. He was here earlier. You probably don't remember it. It was in the summer. Big Game Boomer is coming back, folks. Cam will be on here too. You're not going to want to miss that. Dude, we're doing it. We're doing it live all week long at Locked On Baylor. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Come back tomorrow. Congrats to those 4 guys that are playing in the league next season. And I hope Jackson Player and Isaac Power and others are added to that list. John Mayer's added to that list. And that Baylor becomes, year in and year out, a team that puts guys in the league. That's what I want, Dave. That's my request. Put guys in the league. I'm Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated's Locked On Baylor and Inside the Bears and all the other jazz. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks again for making this your first listen every single day. This has been, it always will be, Locked On Baylor.